Hey everybody, my name's Melissa and welcome back to Hopeful Happenings. Today we're covering how to write an engaging synopsis for your novel. First things first, what is a synopsis? Well, Writer's Digest defines a synopsis in this way. A synopsis conveys the narrative arc, an explanation of the problem or plot, the characters, and how the book or novel ends. It summarizes what happens and who changes from beginning to the end of the story. Okay, so why do you need a synopsis? Well, most agents will ask you for a synopsis along with a query letter and maybe like the first chapter of your book. And pretty well all editors will ask for a synopsis as well. So even if you have an agent and you never had to go through the synopsis process, you will most likely have to go through it when you're doing the submissions to publishing houses. It's also good just to have on hand so that you know your story structure, and if you ever go through edits, you will be able to stick to that structure and not get too sidetracked because you have that baseline to look on. Okay, here's the stuff I know you're looking for. What to include in your synopsis? Well, a synopsis is a summary of the narrative arc, which means you're going to want to have a clear beginning, middle, and end, or rather you're going to want to have the exposition, rising action, climax, and end. The purpose of a synopsis is to provide an easy way to see the full story arc. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through what I do for a synopsis, starting with the beginning. So first, you're going to have an introduction of the setting or the concept of your book. And next, in that introduction, you want to give us a sentence of who the main character is. And it's very important that you describe what their desire is in that sentence. For example, if I was doing a synopsis of Finding Nemo, let's say, then my character description could look a little something like this. Marlin, a protective clownfish, dreams of an ocean where his family can be safe. Okay, great. So now that you've got your little intro paragraph, the next paragraph is the inciting incident. Don't know what an inciting incident is? Well, I've actually done a video on this, so if you want to check that out, I'll have it linked below. But essentially, it is the event that thrusts the protagonist into the main action of the story. Next, we're going to do our plot point 1. Once again, if you want more information on this, I'll have it linked down below. But plot point 1 is the action the protagonist takes that changes the direction of the story. It's the point of no return. After the plot point 1, I like to talk about the rising action. I don't go into too much detail here, but I do want to see if there's anything that I can mention out of the main plot points that includes a new character that the main character meets, or perhaps what problems they face. So anything major that they cover in between plot point 1 and the midpoint, you can summarize in 1 to 3 sentences there. And if they meet the villain, tell us. Next, we have our midpoint. The midpoint is the middle of the book, and this is a crucial moment in the story. It's what causes the character to change direction, physically or emotionally. It's a real turning point in the story. Next, we are going to talk about our character's dark moment. So normally after the midpoint, the character kind of has this like new energy. They feel like they have the upper hand, things are going great, things are positive, and then something will happen that just brings them down. Put this into your synopsis, not just the point that brings them down, but also what is it that they need to do to bring themselves back up and be ready for the climax. Next, we have our climax, and this is probably the most crucial part of your synopsis because it's where everything cultivates and peaks. How does the battle between the protagonist and the antagonist play out? In summary form though, you don't have to give everything away. And lastly, we'll put in the resolution. This is the part of the synopsis where you tie all the loose ends together and you leave the reader with a sense of completion. We need to feel as a reader that we're leaving the story with like an image. What's the final image that you want to leave with your reader? That's something you're going to put in your synopsis. Okay, so now all of those sections that we talked about are going to be between 1 and like 3 sentences long each, so that your total amounts to 1 page of text single-spaced, or 2 pages double-spaced. Always do 1 page of text single-spaced unless otherwise stated. Now the nitty-gritty stuff. In your synopsis, you will only mention 3 characters. These characters are your protagonist, your antagonist, and either like a love interest or your contagonist. You can go up to 5 characters, but I would suggest sticking to 3. And these are the characters that you actually name by their name. Everybody else in your synopsis that you need to mention, you can name them by their title. So if I was doing Finding Nemo, I would probably choose Marlin, Dory, and Nemo as the 3 characters that I'm going to name by name, and then everybody else I can talk about as to what they are. For example, a vegetarian shark clan, a pelican, a dentist, the little redhead girl. You know, just describe what they are, not saying their name. And always keep to the characters that have direct impact on the main plot, and you don't have to mention the other ones. The first time you ever mention someone's name, you will put that name in all caps. The rest of the time, you do not have to put it in all caps. And it will be in third person present tense. I know you guys want to know what not to do, so here we go. Do not mention too many characters or events. Do not mention too much detail about plot twists. We do want to know the full story from beginning till end, but that doesn't mean we need to know everything. Only give the reader enough information that they will understand the story arc. Do not fail to mention the end. This is not a jacket summary. You have to mention how it all concludes. Do not step outside of the narrative. And by this, I mean, don't say, at the climax, Joe does that. Like, don't say at the climax in the beginning, in a epic scene. Like, that's stepping out of the narrative. We don't want to do that. Don't include subplots. This might actually help you a lot, because you might be thinking, how am I supposed to fit my whole incredible story into 1 page? Well, any subplots, they should be out of there anyways. Do not put too much personality into your writing. Save that for the query and the book itself. With a synopsis, we're just looking for clean, precise language. For example, I could go on about how Marlin jumps to save Dory from the jellyfish, and they bounce on all the heads, and as fast as they can they try to make it through, but they can't, and then they get stung. But obviously that's just way too much detail. Instead, I could say something like this. Marlin helps Dory escape of jellyfish forest, but both end up wounded. Remember this rule, less is more. Now, if you're worried about how to keep your synopsis engaging when you're so limited on voice and word count, well, here you go. You will always be more engaging if you are an active voice. And number 2, highlight what is unique about your book. This is especially true with genre fiction. In genre fiction, agents and editors, they know what points you're supposed to hit. They know where the plot points are, what the midpoint is, just based on what kind of genre it is. So you need to be able to stand out. What makes your story unique? What makes your fantasy different from this person's fantasy? Put those necessary, unique details into your synopsis to keep the reader interested. And 3, your plot points, your inciting incident, your trouble. All of this is actually really interesting. You just might not remember because you've read this story so many times, because it's yours, right? Well, just because you know your story so well doesn't mean that the reader does. They are going to be interested about the trouble that the character has to face, the dark moment that they have to overcome. These are going to keep them reading. So don't worry about that. There you go, guys. That's all the tips I have for Synopsis today. I hope it helps you. If you have any more tips, please comment below and share them with us. We would all love to hear from you. And if ever you have a personal question about your Synopsis, feel free to message me. Ask me questions. I'd love to help you out. If you're new here, welcome. Thank you so much for coming, and I hope you will subscribe on your way out. I post once a week on YouTube, and I post daily on Instagram, sharing writing advice and my own writing journey. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye!